From LA to Piscataway, you've come to the right place to talk all things Big Ten. Welcome to Big Ten Ted Live.
We are winging it tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Big Ten Ted Live on a Thursday night. We are going to be talking about all kinds of things. Here's been the deal. It's been a busy week. Okay, I work a full-time job. I try to do this. I try to do that. It's been a long week. It's a minor miracle that I've been able to get 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 preview videos out there for the games this week. So if you haven't checked them out, we just put up Washington State against Wisconsin on the channel. That went up today. Iowa State Cyhawk series this weekend, folks. So what else we got? We got, there's just this game that everybody's talking about, Nebraska and Colorado. We can talk about that as well. And then we got tomorrow night, Illinois and Kansas. This is a game that I am very excited about. So I had enough time to do a grand total of 1 graphic, which you see on the screen right now. So I always like to get in 1 live stream a week. So get involved with the show tonight. Leave your chats in the comments. And here's kind of the deal. This show can go in many different directions. However you want to steer it, I say, you see on the graphic, no notes, no prep. We're just winging it tonight. So whatever game you want to talk about, heck, if you want to talk about Indiana and Indiana State, let's talk Hoosiers and Sycamores. I'm all about it. We've got a guest actually waiting for us. We got a caller waiting for us. So we'll get to that here in just a minute. Just a few more housekeeping things to kind of take care of. If you want to join the show after our guy Minnesota Dave, that'll be joining us here in just a little bit. The link is in the chat. Also check out our Discord. It's free. The Big Ten TED Discord. You can chat Big Ten all year long with any other fan base. The invite link to the Discord is right up there at the top of the chat if you want to be a part of that. You know, a lot of times I need to upload a video, do a live stream for you guys to get involved in the comments. But on the Discord, you can talk about anything, anytime you want without me uploading anything or doing a live stream. So it's a great place to kind of talk about. You can talk, there's a section for transfer portal, for recruiting, for every 18 teams in the Big Ten, which starts in 2024. So you can talk about all things over there as well. So here's one more thing that kind of talking about the busy schedule, right, that I have with a full-time job with other stuff. I kind of work freelance jobs every now and then, and I would like to put more into this channel. A great way to support the channel is to hit that join button and be a member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. Your support helps me put and invest more time and more effort into this channel. How is that? That still does not seem humanly possible, but it is. It is, trust me. So your support as a member, and of course you get kind of a little bit of perks with that as well. So being a member of the channel helps support me and helps for me to be able to focus in on and kind of do this stuff a little bit more as well. So as we said at the top, we can talk about anything. We can talk about everything, anything, and that's what we're going to do exactly right now. So we've got our first caller here with us tonight. He goes by the name of Minnesota Dave right now. And Dave, it looks like I got you unmuted. Dave, can you hear me? Dave's black, ladies and gentlemen. This is live. This is a live stream at its finest. I think Dave has gone away. Dave has gone away, folks. So we're just going to talk about other stuff. All right, what a great start to this show. Gerald, let's see here. Gerald McKinley coming into the chat here tonight. Brad P. coming out with the hot take saying Indiana could lose to Indiana State. I'm hearing that the Sycamores aren't that great. That's what I'm hearing right now. In Indiana, if you're talking about the Hoosiers, man, they need to get some offense. They need to get some semblance of offense going on right now. Dave, can you hear me? I don't think Dave can hear me. I still think Dave's got some issues over there. I can't hear Dave right now. So we'll get to that. We'll get to our caller here in just a little bit right now. But let's kind of continue on with what's happening. Of course, everybody's talking about Nebraska and Colorado right now. So I'll kind of transition into that. Okay, so let's talk about Colorado for a minute. let's talk about Colorado. I'm not thrilled with what's going on in terms of the discussion right now with the Buffaloes, because that's all the national media is talking about right now. And nobody's talking about Nebraska, and I said it in my preview between the Huskers and the Buffaloes. What a great opportunity. What a great opportunity for Nebraska. How often is Nebraska able to pull the us against the world mentality, right? They've got such a big fan base, and in Big Ten circles, at least, they are talked about quite a bit as well. So you look at what Deion Sanders is doing, and this is not, I just want to say this about this Colorado game. This is not the fault of Deion Sanders, because if I were him, I'd be doing the same thing, right? In today's day and age, you got to find a way to stand out. You got to find a way to gain attention. And he's doing it. But it's not, I don't necessarily have a problem, so to speak, with Deion Sanders. It's the national media blowing up Deion, and that's all we're talking about right now in college football. Like, look at the week 1 performance from Florida State, right? We're kind of getting outside the Big Ten bubble a little bit, but right now, but that's fine. Look at the Florida State, let's call it as it is, dominating LSU in week number 1 in Orlando. Okay, for my money at least, Florida State might be the top team in the country, as much as I'd love to put Michigan up there, or Penn State, who looked really good, of course, in week number 1, or Ohio State as well. As much as I'd love to do that, Florida State is up there right now. But everybody, all they want to talk about right now is Colorado because of Deion Sanders. And here's one thing that I want to get into. I'll get into some chats, and we'll take a third or fourth stab here at Minnesota Dave in just a little bit. But here's what I want to say about Colorado. It's one game. Okay? There's some podcasts I listen to on a weekly basis, and they're saying it's one game, not necessarily with Colorado, but with some other teams. Illinois wasn't able to get the pass rush. It's one game. Let's see what happens in week 2 against Kansas. And you can kind of keep on going down the line of things that happened in week number 1. Let's not overreact. Okay, so national media, you're blowing up Colorado. Okay, that's fine. You need something to talk about. Okay? You're talking about Deion Sanders. I know he might be the best defensive back of all time, one of the best athletes of all time if you factor, what he did in college, what he did in the NFL, what he did in Major League Baseball, and now what he's done in coaching. And one of the greatest sports resumes of all time. There's no doubt about that. Right, but this is one game. Let's look at TCU, because I think that's what needs to be talked about when we talk about Colorado is you put up 45 points on a team. Great. There's a possibility at the end of this thing, and by the end of this thing, I mean the 2023 season, when we look back on TCU, this could be a 6-6 team. They could. They could be 6-6. Maybe they could be 7-5, and maybe one of the worst defenses in the country. Like, that's the beauty about overreacting in week 1 is you set yourself up for 6, 7, 8 weeks, whatever down the road. You're saying, man, I kind of looked like an idiot after I proclaimed Colorado as the next coming of Alabama, as I proclaimed Shooter Sanders and Travis Hunter, and if they continue to perform at this level, absolutely. They're definitely in the running to be able to get whatever individual awards and for Colorado to have success. But it's one game against a team that lost almost everything. Almost everything, because everybody's been thrown around. You got a Colorado team that went 1-11 last year. One of the worst teams, probably them and Northwestern, were the worst teams in the Power 5 one season ago. And then you turn around, TCU went to the national championship last season. It's so hard. I get where people are coming from. Colorado brought in, 40, 50 new transfers? You bring in a recruiting class. I think they said something like 70-something new players possibly on that team. Right? This is not the same team. So for you to say, this is a 1-11 Colorado team. Well, last year's team was. All those guys got out because some Louis came with Deion Sanders. You look at TCU, a team that made their way to the national championship game. Where's Max Duggan? Where's all these playmakers? Where's all these guys? They've moved on. They've moved on, folks. Like, these are not the same teams. In my opinion, right, as of right now, I think these teams, right, what you have, whatever TCU went, their overall record was last year, and we know 1-11. I think these teams are going to meet in the middle. I honestly do. What happens when Colorado plays Oregon? What happens when Colorado plays USC? Okay, I mentioned in my Nebraska-Colorado preview that one word, you can use a lot of words right now to describe Colorado after one game. One word you can't describe them right now is physical. I think you can describe Nebraska as a physical football team. I really think you can. And that's the way Nebraska can win. We can talk about that here in just a little bit. But what happens when you have a team that can line up and run it and run it and run it and run it again? That's what Nebraska needs to do, right, in order to win this game. But it's just there's so many things that still are up in the air with Colorado. I want to see how they perform this week against Nebraska. Nebraska, it's 1 week, and I'm evaluating one game, but I think Nebraska is a much better defense than TCU. I thought Nebraska did a really good job in coverage against Minnesota. Okay, those deep balls, you had guys like Omar Brown and others in that Nebraska secondary right on the hip pocket. Right on the hip pocket of some of those Minnesota wide receivers. It was very difficult to go down the field. I think Shadur Sanders in this wide receiving game, right? These guys that they have, Xavier Weaver, Jimmy Horn, and some of these other guys, Travis Hunter, of course, on the outside. Some of these other guys, they're gonna have issues. They're gonna have issues, I think, because Nebraska's gonna be able to cover better. Hopefully, I know Ty Robinson up front is gonna be out for the first half of that game. But once they get it back in the second half, I think they're going to be fine. We'll talk about that more later. One last thing I want to talk about here in this little rant to start off with Colorado is this. I hate First Take. I hate Undisputed. I hate morning talk shows. All right? I think it's producers and talent getting in a room before a show starts and say, how can we piss off the country today? How can we get them to talk about it on social media? And I think that's everything that's wrong with sports television. I think it's wrong with everything there are things that are wrong about opinion-based sports programming. Okay, I just want to get that out right away. Someone sent me a clip. First Take. Well, they have Stephen A. Smith. They had their host, Molly or whatever. They had Russo, Mad Dog Russo. I think Paul Feinbaum was on there as well. Russo's talking. He comes out and says he's rooting for Nebraska. He's rooting for Nebraska. And everybody's like, whoa, what's going on here? And then he comes out and says, I'm Deion'd out. I'm Deion'd out. And everybody's going and saying, well, he's been able to back it up. And they're saying all these things. And Russo comes back and says, it's no fault of Deion. Deion's doing a great job, no doubt about it. And he's giving Deion his due, like I think I and a lot of other people have done. But he was on ESPN airwaves. And he could not come out and say, and point at everybody else and says, it's not Deion that's the problem. You're the problem. You're the one that's blowing this up and calling this guy the next Nick Saban. You're the one that's blowing this up and saying college football has changed. You're the ones on a halftime of Clemson and Duke putting your arms and your palms up saying, what can Nebraska do? Let's just drive the bus home and not even play the game. Like that, it's just, and I think Russo, of course, he kind of knew what was politically correct in that instance and said, I'm not going to point at others. I'm not going to point at the network, and I'm not going to get myself in trouble kind of thing. But I think that's what he was thinking in his head, is that he is Deion'd out because of all of this promotion from ESPN and from Fox, of course. Now, I'm going to credit Fox. First two games, getting record numbers, it clearly draws. They made the right decision to put Colorado on the first 2 weeks of the season against TCU and against Nebraska. I would have done the same thing if I'm the president of Fox. I'm not the president of Fox, but if I were, that is what I would do. So we'll talk about Nebraska. We'll talk about Colorado a little bit later on. All right, let's give it another try here. Minnesota Dave, can you hear me? I still can't hear him. I don't think he's got his mic on. So I'm going to ask him to check his mic settings, maybe rejoin the maybe get out of the chat room and get back in. That could help as well. So we'll try to get to him here in just a little bit. But before I do, Dave, I'm actually going to keep you unmuted. So if you do start talking and I do hear you, I can get to you right away. All right. So we'll have Dave kind of to work out some things. But in the meantime, let's get to some chats here right now. Our guy Jared Jones, the Buckeye fan, Ohio State, saying Indiana will win. Hoosiers against Indiana State. That's a pretty safe bet. Pretty safe bet is where Chase in the house here tonight. Big round of applause for a member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club, Mr. Lewis Papp, joining us saying go blue. Michigan playing those rebel rousers, those running rebel rousers from UNLV this week. I want to talk about Michigan. I want to talk about them. There's just not a ton to talk about in the first 3 weeks when they play East Carolina, when you play UNLV, and you play the Fighting Connor Bazelaks in Bowling Green. So that's kind of, was it 30-0? I think I was close. I had a 38-6 pick over there as well. So it looks like we got you here, Dave. Can you hear me? I still don't have them on this end. So I'll have to do some technical stuff here. Let's see here if we get let's clear this chat here. And let's do this. Oh, how about now? I think I figured out the issue. Dave, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Holy crap, we got it working. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Now I can't see you.
Yeah, you can't see me. Well, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. Boy, all kinds of great stuff. You gotta love technology. You gotta love technology.
Yeah. Right when you muted me the first time, I could see you start the show, and your lips were moving, but I couldn't hear a dang thing. And it was so delayed, it was like a Japanese film.
Interesting. Okay, but you can hear me now, correct? You're
good
now? Okay, all right. Well, we got to get the Big Ten TED IT team on, a.k.a. me, after this stream talking about. So we got you in here now. We're winging it tonight. We got no rundown. I got no notes. This is all about the community. It's all about chats. It's all about calls. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Well, let's talk about how well the Gophers played. Defensively, they were probably really good at slowing down the passing game in Nebraska. Nebraska had absolutely no passing game whatsoever. And you were saying the same thing with the Nebraska and how they played their defense. The biggest worry I have for the Gophers is where's the running game now?
I mean, they did rush for 100. Well, Jeff Sims was the big part of that run game against Minnesota. And what they rushed for 180 some yards, I think, against the Gophers, and that's their key.
I'm talking about the Gophers offense.
Oh, you're talking about the Gophers run game, not Nebraska's run game.
Not Nebraska's run game.
Yeah, that's an issue. Okay, because we saw last year just how much they handed to Mo. You look at the Wisconsin game where Ethan kind of opened it up a little bit more, and you can kind of talk about that. But yeah, they need to get it going, right? Whether it's Sean Tyler, freshman Darius Taylor, Bryce Williams has been in the program for a lot of years. Whoever it is, they got to find someone. I thought Sean Taylor showed some sparks. There were a few runs that says, "Ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's good." Do you think?
I think it's more an O-line problem.
Yeah, I was about to just ask you that.
Running back problem.
So you think this is on? We're so used to having the Minnesota Moving Company up front and just being able to push some guys around.
They're very, very young still, and they're none of them have all started. So I'm thinking that it's more of an O-line trying to still having to work the kinks of opening the holes. Their pass blocking was excellent, I thought.
Yeah, I thought they played pretty well. Nebraska pass rush. I believe there was a point in the third quarter, I think, where the Huskers got in a few times, but that seemed about it as well over there. So yeah, that's that offensive line. We're really used to them being, and this is kind of a year where you don't know what you have. A lot of teams around the conference, Minnesota is one of them that's still trying to figure it out. The offense. I think the running back room is fine. I think they're talented. I think there's guys in there, and we saw that against Nebraska where they were able to get some runs going. But here's the thing here's where I'm at. And I'm curious to see your thoughts as a Minnesota fan off of this. You hand the ball off, 30, 40, whatever times a game to Muhammad Ibrahim last year. And that was the path to winning. That was the path to their success. But here's the other thing. You're going from an offense where you hand it off 30 to 40 times a game, and now Ethan Kaliakmanis threw it over 40 times a game. This is a pretty big difference. But I will say this, just like the key to winning games last year was running the football, I think the key to winning games this year might be throwing the ball, because you got Chris Bell when he comes back, Daniel Jackson, you got the transfers in there.
All their big playmakers are going to be like their wide receivers and their tight ends.
I mean, Brevin Spanford. Yeah, that's another great one in there as well. It's just, I think that's the way they win, and their running game is a compliment. It's something to keep the defense off balance. You got to run the football at some time. That's kind of where I see things going for Minnesota. They've got a couple of opportunities here before they play North Carolina. Right, and the news came down today that Tez Walker did not get his appeal approved by the NCAA, so that kind of takes a little bit of heat off this Minnesota defense as well when they play North Carolina. Kind of going forward before they get to North Carolina, what do you think? What do you want to see out of this Gopher team to say, hey, they're ready to play at North Carolina and maybe win at North Carolina?
Well, here's the thing I would like to see before we go to North Carolina is a balanced offense on both sides of basically I would like to see us being able to pass the ball, but, get more than maybe when we're running the ball, get more than an average of 2.5 yards a carry. Would like to see it to be back to 5, maybe 4. And you should easily do that against an Eastern Michigan team.
Right, yeah.
Which, I think Eastern Michigan might be a competitive team in the Mid-American Conference this year, but it's still the Mid-American Conference.
It's still MAC team. Quickly, we'll get back into that one. We got a comment here on how to become a member from our guy Jared Jones. Below the video, if you click the join button, and then you kind of pick there. So just look below the video, click the join button to become a member here of the channel as well. Yeah, that North Carolina game is going to be something. That's going to be really fun. When I looked at that in the preseason, this Illinois-Kansas game, which we'll talk about
that's another game
a little bit later.
I'm really excited. I'm extremely excited to see how well Illinois does after basically almost choking it to
Dave turned upside down here. We lost him for a minute. We lost him for a minute. All right, Dave, we're going to go audio only here. For just a minute. Let's see here. See if I can figure this out. Dave, can you still hear me? Well, we lost Dave for just a minute. We lost Dave again. This is Technology City. Right here. So we'll talk about Illinois and we'll talk about Kansas a little bit later on. But yeah, he was talking about his Gophers. That Minnesota-North Carolina game is very intriguing as well. I'm really excited about that game as well. Let's kind of get to some comments here. Kind of go on and see what everybody's talking about right now. Jason chiming in. Everybody's overreacting to Colorado winning one game. All right? It's one game. That's it. It's a lot of one game overreaction, I think, for a lot of people right now. It's a lot of one game overreaction over there. Gerald chiming in. Travis Hunter, I will say, he could definitely play both sides of the ball. Did it last year. He can't just play 100-plus snaps. They got to manage him, and I think they did that pretty well against TCU. I did see that in terms of the offensive side of the ball and then balancing him out on defense. You got to pick your spots, I think, kind of going forward right now. That's going to be key. That's going to be key for Colorado, because once you get to game 9, 10, you go through a Pac-12 schedule where there are some very good Pac-12 teams. yeah, I think you're going to have some issues eventually. He's eventually going to get worn down when you got to play Oregon in the season, when you got to play Utah towards the end of the season, when you got to play USC. There's going to be some games where you're going to get worn down a little bit, especially when you're tackling, coming up in the run support on the defensive side of the football. Gerald also saying it feels like Nebraska has to be perfect to stand a chance against Colorado. Do they have to be perfect? I don't know about perfect. It kind of depends how Colorado responds. But here's what I will say. Maybe they need to be perfect in kind of how they were against Minnesota. They need to be a lot better than they were against Minnesota. You need to finish drives with touchdowns. Plain and simple. You need to finish drives by getting into the end zone. Can't settle for field goals. Can't throw picks. Can't fumble the ball away. All right? You need to get into the end zone. No question about that, because this is Colorado is built, from 1 week looking at it, Colorado is more built to play from behind than Nebraska is. Okay, I firmly believe that. I believe that very strongly. If Colorado gets behind, they can at least try to sling it. They can get up and down. They can put it in the air, all that stuff. If Nebraska is down by 10, 14 points with 10 or 8 minutes to go, it's going to be tough. It might be over at that point, because I think we saw how Jeff Sims and this passing offense struggled a little bit. Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda is out with an ACL injury. He's kind of out for the remainder of the season as well. So, yeah, I'll admit, Gerald, they got to play a really good game. Perfect? We'll see. Sunshine Design, our resident Northwestern fans, say Nebraska's in a dogfight all year. I think they'll beat Louisiana Tech and Northern Illinois handily, but you kind of look at the rest of the schedule, especially against these Big Ten teams. I think a lot of these games are going to be tough here for Nebraska going forward. We'll see. They got to get their offense better. Jeff Sims has got to get better and continue to get better as the season goes along. Jared Jones, me and you both. Kansas and Illinois is going to be great. You kind of got a contrast in styles a little bit, where Kansas they're going to look to get up and down the field, score a lot of points. It sounds like Jalen Daniels is going to be back here this week for Kansas. And then you got Illinois, who historically, at least, they want to be able to be physical. Brett Bielema, run the football, bring your lunch pail to work, that kind of thing. I actually think their offense is a little bit better when they're throwing the football around a little bit more, especially this year. We saw how good Luke Altmaier can be. So there's that. So Illinois, Kansas, I'm very, very excited about. Gerald likes Kansas right now. We've got a Colorado fan in the house saying, let's go Buff. Here's the thing about this. I love the state of Colorado. I went to Colorado a couple of years ago. I drove through Boulder. It is a scenic, gorgeous town. And I love the state. It's just, I think Colorado, we'll see what Deion Sanders' long-term future is in Boulder, Colorado. I think that's an interesting thing. That's something that we need to talk about. People are coming out and saying this week, Deion's going to be in Colorado for 3 years, 4 years, whatever it takes for an SEC, a Big Ten, an ACC, a big-time program to take him seriously. And then he's going to bolt, and he's going to go wherever he's going to go. I don't know if that's true. I'd like to think it's true, but you can do something there at Colorado. I firmly believe that. I think you got a lot going for you if you're Colorado. I saw a Twitter conversation as well today. Some people saying, watch out for 5 years, 7, 8 years, whatever, down the road. Watch out for Colorado. If they're a top 15, if they're a top 10 program, maybe a sneaky Big Ten invitation could be on the table, right? This is an AAU school. If they're able to really up their brand and Deion Sanders commits to a long-term future, something to look at. Something to look at down the road, right? It's a contiguous state with Nebraska, right? It kind of provides a little bit more regionality, a little bit more of a connection between the West Coast schools and the schools in the central time zone. Just something to keep an eye on. I thought it was a very interesting game, to say the least, as well. Dave, appreciate Minnesota Dave coming in. So Dave's just going to join the chat here tonight. So thanks, Dave. I appreciate you coming on. If anybody else wants to try their hand at technology, the link is in the chat here to join the show. Tacken joining us tonight, talking about Iowa Hawkeyes. Look promising their first few drives. I think they have talent to be a much better offense, but they will make the necessary changes to get the run game going. So let's talk about Iowa. Of course, they're taking on Iowa State this week, and I talked about it in my Iowa State preview that's on the channel right now. You can go check it out. First couple of drives looked great. Cade McNamara was out there. He was throwing the football around the yard. Everything looked really, really good. And then I think they tried to run the football a little bit more. I don't know if it's first game stuff. I don't know if they're going to get it figured out. But this is a team that needs to be able to run the ball. You need to be able to run the football at a place like Iowa. Okay, at Iowa, especially with bad luck Brian Ferentz coordinating your offense, you can't just sit back there and let Cade throw 30 to 40 times a game. I don't know if Cade wants that. I think Cade McNamara succeeds as a quarterback when he's sitting back there in the pocket and he's got a good run game and he's got a good defense to play off of. You look at Michigan a couple of years ago when he led them to a Big Ten title. That's where he was successful. He was successful when he was able to lean on other parts of the game where he wasn't the superstar. If you're looking for a superstar quarterback, I don't think Cade McNamara is necessarily your guy. I just don't think that that's the case. That's how I feel about Cade McNamara, and that's how I feel about the Iowa Hawkeyes. Puffy J coming in. Iowa should be ranked above Wisconsin. Now, both the Hawkeyes and the Badgers had their fair share of issues last week. I am going to say that. All right? It was not 100% 60 minutes of great football for both the Hawkeyes and the Badgers. Okay, but if we're ranking teams, I think when you look at Wisconsin, how they got things going in the second half, Braylon Allen and especially Chez Mellusi looked really, really good in that second half. Wisconsin, as of now, after 1 week, and we said it, that might be the theme of this show, after 1 week, Wisconsin looked really good. The key for Wisconsin, I don't care about Phil Longo and Tanner Mordecai and air raid and all this stuff. Wisconsin still needs to run the football. To be successful this season, I can already see it. I can see it now. You need if you can't run the football with Braylon Allen, and if you can't run the football with Chez Mellusi, and maybe this week we're going to find out possibly something. Because Washington State's a better defense. Washington State's a solid defense. Last year, I want to say they were top 50 in the country in scoring defense, and they bring back a good amount on that team as well. So Wisconsin, that's a challenge out there on the Palouse. That's a challenge at Washington State. Cam Ward was a challenge last year for this Badger defense. And this defense, boy, they miss Jim Leonard. They miss Jim Leonard. I can already tell that right now. So there's a lot of people. Trust me, I picked Wisconsin to win the Big Ten West title with a 9-3 record. 3 losses, though, in the Big Ten Conference. This is a team, if they can't run the football at certain times during the game, as games kind of progress throughout the season, they could be in trouble. They could be in trouble. If you have to lean on Tanner Mordecai, his stats at SMU are great. But, and people, you look at the spring game, threw a lot of interceptions. You look back to games last season against the better teams that SMU played, turn the football over. Turn the football over twice against Buffalo. All right, so can you lean on Tanner Mordecai to go win you a football game if the run game isn't working? That's a big question. It might be answered this Saturday against Washington State. It might be. It might be. So I'm really looking forward to Wisconsin. Here's the thing about week 2. Here's what I love about the Big Ten in week number 2. We're going to find out a lot. Week 1 is week 1. You play it. You know, it's your first game out of the box. You make adjustments. Now you have 60 minutes of game tape. Now you can kind of go back. You can work on some things in practice, and now you get week 2. Here's how I want to elaborate on this. You could do, for week 2, Nebraska. We're going to find out if this is a team that can bring in and contain what appears to be an explosive Colorado offense? Can this be a Nebraska team that runs the football successfully and can attack a soft defense? Those questions will be answered. Is this going to be same old Nebraska? Right? Because that's what everybody's saying after week number 1. A lot of people are saying that. Oh, new coach, same old Nebraska. Up 7 late in the game. All we got to do is not fumble the football. All we got to do is not turn the football over. They did it twice in the last 5 minutes or so. Cost them a shot at winning the football game. I thought, especially in that second half, that third quarter, man, it really looked like Nebraska was turning a corner. I'm like, okay, this looks good. They're putting some momentum together. I thought second half, getting into that fourth quarter, Nebraska was the better football team. Nebraska was the better team. But in the end, who comes away with the W? Who comes away scoring more points than the other? Minnesota made the plays. So when 60 minutes are in the books, who's the better football team? It might be Minnesota. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Rudolph kind of chiming in and saying some good. The ball was punched out. You got to give a lot of credit. It was Justin Wally, and we know how great of a player Justin Wally is on the defensive side of the ball. It's just everything kind of goes hand in hand. It's Nebraska losing a one-score game, finding a way to lose. Anthony Grant was reported to have fumbling issues in fall camp. You know, we just might be able to sit here and say, made the play. Justin Wally made a play. But, you know, I get all of these things kind of stack up with each other as well. Rudolph Walton also chimed in, throwing the ball at the 5-yard line. So you can talk about the last 4 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is. You can talk about that. But I remember, because I was working, and I remember having this game on just off in the corner a little bit. I remember watching this game. They have the ball on the 1-yard line, then they go back to the 5, false start penalty. Right, they got inside the 5-yard line, 6-yard line, something like that a couple of times. They had 2 false start penalties. One of them resulted in an interception in the end zone where Jeff Sims just didn't see a defensive back. And the second time resulted in a field goal. So you get down to the 1-yard line 2 times and you come away with 3 points. Inexcusable. I don't care who you are. Now, a lot of people out there as well are saying, well, you look at Nebraska. You look at Nebraska and, you know, yeah, there's some good things. There's some positive things. This team looked different. Matt Rule, physicality, you can talk about all that. And I agree with that. But at some point between the ears, you need to convince these kids that you can win a close game. Eventually, you need to come away with a victory. Now, I know there have been some sprinkled in. They held off Iowa late in the season last year. But with this, especially early in a coaching tenure, you can't let those thoughts creep in. That's Matt Rule's, one of Matt Rule's main jobs this week, is don't let those thoughts creep into these kids' heads this week. Keep it in-house. Figure it out. Find a way to not turn the football over. That's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. Appreciate everybody for coming along for the ride here tonight on Big Ten Ted Live. No notes, no prep. We are winging it. We are talking about whatever you want here tonight. We got some comments here to get to. Our guy Sunshine Design. We got a he's a Northwestern fan. Northwestern did not look good. I feel bad for the Wild. This has been a rough 4 months, 5 months, whatever it's been for Northwestern. It's been a rough time for the Wildcats. And now for them to be what they are, it's tough. Now I get Rutgers as a solid defense, but you're going to play more solid defenses. You're going to play better teams throughout the year. What's going to happen to the future of Northwestern football? I'm concerned for the future of David Braun. I think he was coming in here saying, I'm going to take over this defense, and maybe this defense is going to be better. But it just doesn't happen, right? And now he's the head coach of a team that's a sinking ship. I'm very curious to see what the future holds. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen going forward for that football program. Age got a couple of comments that talk about Iowa's offensive line. HD90 Dog coming in first. Iowa offensive line seems to be soft, in my opinion. Barnett should be very nervous. That group is not performing regardless of experience. We're so used to Iowa having a fantastic offensive line. We're so used to all these guys like Linderbaum a few years ago at center and some of these other great offensive linemen that they've had throughout the years. They were very young last season. And this game against Iowa State this weekend is really going to tell me a lot because it's a Power 5 defense. It was a good defense last season. Defense is probably the strong point for the Cyclones of Iowa State. All right? So they need to be able to do that. They need to be able to play better on that offensive line. No question about that, especially against Iowa State. We're going to find out a lot about Iowa's run game and Iowa's front against Iowa State. If they struggle again, I don't know. Because this team can't be successful if they can't run the ball. Let's go to scenario. Let's throw one out there. Iowa, trouble running the football. I don't think Wisconsin, they're going to be fine. They're much more talented, as good as Caleb Johnson is. Allen and Malusi, better in the backfield than what Iowa has, talent-wise. Wisconsin's going to be able to run the football. What if there's a handful of games where they face some good fronts? What if there's the Iowa game? What if there's the Illinois game, the Minnesota game, and kind of things start coming down where they can't run the ball and Tanner turns it over? Where do they end up? Where does Wisconsin end up? What if they fall to Washington State and then they fall to those games that I just mentioned? Those are games I picked them to lose 2 out of those 3. I picked them to lose against Illinois, and I picked them to lose against Minnesota. I did pick them to narrowly win against Iowa. We'll see if I still feel that way when I get to that point. Jared Jones chiming in. Iowa needs. Oh boy, that last minute flip from Caden Proctor. Boy, that could be a big what if in Iowa City right now. How much different would this be if they had Caden Proctor on this offensive line? It'd be better, but an offensive line is still 5 guys. Still 5 guys on that offensive line. So, you can't just lean on one guy. But it would definitely be better, of course, if Caden Proctor was there. Yep, Lewis kind of chiming in. If you're interested in being a member, there is no join button on your phone. So if you want to be a member of the Big Ten Ted Champions Club, get some perks. I'll reply to your comments. You'll get your live chats featured on all streams. If you're on a phone, click my channel page, the little Big Ten Ted icon out there. And then I think once you go to the channel page, you should be able to find the join button. I forgot about the thing about the phone. Thanks, Lewis, for coming in for that. Badger and Bournemouth fan, Ben, a little bit. Thanks for coming back to Big Ten Ted Live on Wisconsin as well. And he's kind of coming in with the following. Tanner was not good in game number 1. If he's defense, the Badgers win a lot of games. You got to protect yourself maybe from Tanner Mordecai. All right? Here's the thing with Tanner. All you got to tell him is take what's there. Take what's there. Like, if Tanner just protects the football, Wisconsin's going to be great. Wisconsin might win the West Division. I just feel the more, and we know Phil Longo in his heart of hearts, he knows they want to put the football in the air. He wants to do it. That's what he's done. But they need to be careful with Tanner Mordecai. Okay, you look at what Wisconsin has coming up. Washington State's a sneaky one. That's going to be a challenge. They've got a good secondary. They got a couple of guys back there in that Cougar secondary that had multiple interceptions last season. That's the key. First off, Wisconsin, you got to be able to run the football. You got to be physical at the line of scrimmage. You got to do Wisconsin what you've been doing since 1990, since Scary Barry Alvarez came on campus. That's what you got to do. But if you have to throw the football a little bit more, you got to avoid the turnovers, because I think there's some smoke on that Washington State defense where they could maybe come up with a couple of interceptions. And we saw that this is an offense that I believe can move the football very well in Washington State. So, Badger and Bournemouth fan, thanks for coming aboard on the live stream here tonight. Puff EJ, I'll take this question. Will PJ Fleck get the pig? Will he find a way to cure his Iowa problem and beat the Iowa Hawkeyes? Drink of water for dramatic effect. Right now, at this very moment in time, September 7th, 2023, 8:46 p.m. in the great state of Minnesota. No. That could change. Minnesota's impressive. They go on the road to beat North Carolina. That could change. That could definitely change. Right now, I think Iowa's better on offense. Much better on offense than they were last year. They got a quarterback. They can actually move the football down the field. All right? They got that. Iowa still got a great defense. Minnesota put up 13 points on a Nebraska defense that I believe is not as good as the Iowa defense. Okay? So I'll say that. This game is at Kinnick. I think if there was a year to break the streak, it was last year. Right? And they were a Muhammad Ibrahim fumble away from breaking the streak. And this PJ Fleck has done so much at Minnesota. Right? An 11-win season. A couple of 9-win seasons as well. Last year was that year, I believe, to get the monkey off the back. To get this pig off his back and in the hands of everybody here in the great state of Minnesota. But it didn't happen. Going to Kinnick, tough defense. We'll see if the offense gets humming. Maybe they get Chris Altman-Bell back. Maybe this offensive line plays a little bit better. They kind of get in a rhythm. These new pieces gel a little bit more. And then we'll see what happens with Iowa. Maybe Iowa has a little bit of trouble running the football. Who knows what happens with Cade McNamara because he doesn't look completely 100% healthy as of right now. I think there's a lot to figure out by the time we get to Pig Week. But as of right here and right now, I think that's an Iowa win. I think that's an Iowa win. I predicted it at the beginning of the year to be an Iowa win. Ancient Astronaut chiming in. Will Purdue start 0-2? Oh, boy. So they're going to go on the road to Virginia Tech. From what I know, Virginia Tech, not a very good football team. From what I understand, you know, I'm kind of a little bit in the Big Ten bubble, so to speak. I'm in the Big Ten bubble, so to speak. When I look at Purdue, and I go on the road to Virginia Tech, which we know not an easy environment to play in. The thing for Purdue, they need to get that defense figured out. They need to get the defense figured out. And I know they had some injuries, right? Gus Hartwig on the offensive line, that was a big loss. And this is the thing I said at the beginning. Injuries were kind of a problem last year a little bit for this Boilermaker team. And they gotta find a way to remain healthy. I think during that game, Sanusi Kane, if I remember correctly, went out for a little bit. Of course, he's one of their top safeties, right? Him and Cam Allen, that dynamic duo in the secondary coming back. Right now, I think Purdue wins, and I picked a Purdue win. And if you lose to Fresno State and Virginia Tech to start the season, you still got to play Syracuse. Here's what I want to say about Purdue. You got a Fresno State team that could be that team that gets that group of 5 bid to the New Year's Six. This could be a 10-win team. This could be an 11-win team. This could be a group of 5 offense of Fresno State that slings it around. Okay, and they look like a really good team. And Purdue is still figuring out what Ryan Walters wants and Kevin Kane want out of this defense. This Purdue team is going to get better. I like what I see out of their offense. I think Hudson Card is picking up, maybe not in the exact same spot that Aiden O'Connell left off, but pretty darn similar. Pretty darn similar. I like Hudson Card. Hudson Card and Luke Altmaier both look really good in week number 1. Purdue, you need to find a way to run the football up the middle. As I talked about, Gus Hartwig had some injuries in the middle of that offensive line. If they make a few stops on 3rd down and they convert a couple of those short yardage runs up the middle with Devin Mockabee, they win the football game. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Let's see. That's one thing. When we talk about a week 1 to week 2 turnaround, Purdue is one of those teams that I really want to see a turnaround. Because if they go on the road and beat Virginia Tech, even though Virginia Tech's not a great team, this is not your daddy's Virginia Tech, right? Michael and Marcus Vick ain't walking through that door. Frank Beamer, Bud Foster ain't walking through that door, right? So it's not that Virginia Tech, but if you get the win in Blacksburg, definitely think you could really flip the narrative of what people are talking about right now. Okay. I got some comments to get to, but one just came in from Jared. It's spicy. It's spicy. From our resident Ohio State fan, if my computer catches up, but there it is. Ohio State fan. Ohio State mega fan, dare I say, Jared Jones saying he'd trade Kyle McCord when he came out, 5-star Kyle McCord, high 4-star, according to some services, for Luke Altmaier right now. That is a take. And it might take a little bit for Kyle McCord to really get into the swing of things. But I will give you this. Luke Altmaier played a better game with lesser talent on the outside. That's what I will say right off the bat. Now, there is some talent on the perimeter for Illinois. Okay, don't sleep on Isaiah Williams. Don't sleep on Casey Washington. Don't sleep on Pat Bryant, especially Tip Ryman at tight end. Don't sleep on these guys for the Illini. But for Ohio State, you got to figure out, the vibe I got early in the game, and I wrote this on my notes of my Ohio State-Indiana reaction, does Ryan Day trust this passing game? Does he trust Kyle McCord? I'm very curious because Devin Brown got 3 snaps, 4 snaps, something like that in that game. And remember, we had that quarterback battle, right? It looked like it was Kyle McCord. Devin Brown got injured in the spring. And then it looked like Kyle McCord just by default was going to win it. Then it looked like Devin Brown played a good fall camp. It looks like Kyle McCord did not separate himself. He did not stand out enough when Devin Brown, when he had the opportunity maybe to stand out as QB1, he didn't do it. And then Devin Brown had a solid camp, or at least a comparable camp to Kyle McCord in the lead up. This is an Ohio State team. You got to run the football. You got solid interior offensive line play. We know the tackles are new, and that's something that needs to be worked on as the season goes along. You got to get things figured out. You got to get the quarterback figured out. You got to get offensive line figured out before you play Notre Dame. But this is a fantastic front seven at Ohio State. They've got 3 great backs, Chip Traynham, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, that all play a different role in this offense. So you got 3 guys that can get it done in this Buckeye run game. It's a shame that we sit here and say this about Ohio State, but it's the truth. That you've got a generational wide receiver room. Generational. Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to step onto an NFL team next year, and he's probably going to be wide receiver 1 because the teams I think that have good wide receivers are going to draft a little bit later. Let's just say that. So there's that. But when I look at the Ohio State Buckeyes right now, it's amazing that this is going to be a team. This is going to be a Big Ten team running in defense. That's what we could see from Ohio State. Yet you still got 2 first-round draft. Well, definitely 2 first-round draft picks on the outside. Julian Fleming ain't bad either. True freshman Carnell Tate, he's pretty darn good as well. It's going to be weird. Okay, Youngstown State, we know we got a couple of cupcakes before we get to Notre Dame. I want to see in these games, right, as we're tuning up, so to speak, for Notre Dame, I want to see Ohio State sling it. You need to build more confidence in this pass game. That's what needs to happen. I think we know Ohio State can run the football. But pass game needs to get there. If they want to get to a playoff level, if they want to get to a Big Ten title level, if they want to get to a national championship level, you need to figure out the pass game. I thought Kyle McCord made some good throws. He made some decent throws at time, but it just didn't seem like this offensive coaching staff, Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, just didn't seem like they were putting their whole faith into him. All right. Some good stuff there. I like that. That kind of went off in a good direction as well. Badger and Bournemouth fan hitting some with, did you know, over the last 10 years, the Badgers are 45-12 versus the Big Ten West. Boy, Big Ten Ted Stats and Info, otherwise known as Badger and Bournemouth fan, coming in big here tonight. That's a record. We go back, they've won multiple Big Ten West championships, and that's great right now. But when we get to 2024, boy, this thing's going to flip on its head when there's no East and West. And then you got good West Coast programs coming in. So it's great. Wisconsin's been able to beat some of these West Division teams. But we know the competition. Where's a Wisconsin going to fall? Where's a Minnesota going to fall? Where's an Iowa going to fall? Look at how good Oregon is in, right? Look at how good USC is, right? Washington. Those are 3 really good teams. I know, though, the quarterbacks of those 3 teams won't be around. Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, and Bo Nix, but those are still really good teams that recruit very well. All right, let's move on a little bit. Let's move on. Dave Valensky chiming in. Minnesota. This is Minnesota Dave. Should have won at least 3 of those games against Iowa in the PJ Fleck year. You know, there were times when I got into the almost. This team should have won, and that team should have won. Maybe when I was a younger, maybe in my pre-YouTube days, I'm just like, show me the money. Show me the results. Iowa has the results. There's something to be said about finding a way to win. Wins and losses count. Wins and losses matter. No question about that. But yeah, they were in position to win. Mohamed Ibrahim, got to protect the football. Protects the football, they win. Simple as that. Simple as that. Jared Jones, a new member. Welcome, Jared Jones. He's our guy. He's been our guy, our resident Buckeye fan. Welcome to the Big Ten TED Champions Club. Appreciate your support. Appreciate your membership. Allows me to focus and invest more time and effort into this channel, and I'm sure others appreciate that. For others looking to join the Big Ten TED's Champions Club, you get your automatically get your live stream comments featured, automatically get comments on uploaded videos replied to as well, and some other perks. Hit that join button to support the channel. So thank you, Jared, for doing that here tonight. Boy, Puffy J coming in with some Tyler Nubin. You know, what about him in a comparison to Antoine Winfield Jr.? Remember all those interceptions back in 2019 Antoine Winfield Jr. had? I wonder if Tyler Nubin is going to have the same type of impact this season that Antoine Winfield Jr. had back in 2019. We know how big Antoine Winfield Jr. was in sealing that victory over number 4 Penn State when they beat them in Minneapolis. Badger and Bournemouth fan. Big Ten West teams will find it very hard to make a Big Ten championship game again. So let's talk about 2024 here for just a minute. USC, we know how good they are. We know how good they recruit. USC and Oregon recruit really well. They are top 10 recruiting programs right now, and then that doesn't even factor in portal stuff. And we know that they are very attractive. Oregon and USC are very attractive when it comes to transfer portal stuff. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. I can't wait to find out what Tony Petitti and company do in terms of the schedule. They recently said in an article recently that still going to go away with divisions, going to try to stick with the scheduling model as much as they can. The 3-6-6 doesn't quite line up with 18 teams, but they're going to try their best as well over there. So it's going to be tough. Like, you look at Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, Washington. Then we go down to Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Illinois. Who did I miss? That's 10 teams already. You got 8 other, it's going to be a tough league. It is going to be a grind. I can't wait to see how these West Coast teams kind of come in here and they mesh within the conference as well. The transfer portal, I think, is going to be a big deal because it seems like Wisconsin and Nebraska, those two teams specifically, are going to have top 20 to top 25 recruiting classes. Can they continue to get higher? Can they recruit top 15? Can they really recruit top 10? What if they recruit at a top 20 level? Let's go top 25. If Nebraska and Wisconsin recruit at a top 25 level, what happens? Then they add a transfer here. And then they really dive into the portal to really boost their team to maybe a top 15 to top 10 level. They get a couple of wins. They get some good home draws. They win a couple of games. They get into a Big Ten championship. Who knows? For the most part, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC. I'll throw Oregon in there. I think are the teams that you're going to be seeing a lot of. Okay, you're going to be seeing a lot of those teams. Oregon is very interesting to see if they're tier 1. Remember, they've recruited better than USC, believe it or not, the last few seasons. I know they haven't played since COVID year, and you could almost play. They haven't played since 2019, right? If you don't count the COVID year, which a lot of people don't. And I believe that was an Oregon win, if I remember correctly, as well. If you want to know all things Oregon, look back on my channel under the live tab. I had a conversation with Doug Scott from the QB11 show, a fantastic Oregon podcast. If you're interested in that, so if you want to learn all about Oregon in terms of their move to the Big Ten, go check that out over there. All right, let's get to some more stuff here. Let's get to some more comments. Here's Dave chiming in, and we could open up a can of worms right here. Why the heck are we not having a Big Ten 4-team playoff for the title when we expand? First of all, nothing's been decided yet with the 18-team model. That's the first thing. Second thing, you got to get creative in scheduling. Right now, you got 9 conference games. You got 3 non-conference games. It almost seemed if they were to add a semifinal, you'd have to work it into that 9th game. That's the way it seems to me, where you would have a similar like to the SEC where you have 8 true conference games, and then that 9th week is 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, and then you can kind of go to the next 4, which would be what? 5 versus 8, 6 versus 7, or at least try to find matchups against team. Remember in 2020 when you had the thing called Champions Week when you had the East Division player play the West Division, but to get more games on the schedule, they had you went down the line in the standings, and I think you had like number 2 in the West play number 2 in the East. You could get creative like that and have a semifinal, like I said, where you play 8 true conference games, and then that determines who makes it to the Final Four, and then you have some extra games, then your 9th game. And that could possibly help if you have the 5th team in the Big Ten play the 8th. Maybe that could add a little bit of strength of schedule if we're looking in a 12-team playoff to possibly add, to possibly get into that playoff, another big win. So if you want to get creative, I think that's the way to do it, to still maintain 9 conference games. And then, of course, you have your Big Ten championship. But, now when you get to the semifinals, if you want to do that, if you want to play 9 league games, now you're adding a game when you don't really need to add a game, I think, kind of compared to some of these other conferences. So I think down the road as conferences expand more, once the Big Ten and the SEC get more into the southeastern part of the country, I think you're going to start to see semifinals pop up. It's just they might need to be a little bit creative when they do it. Badger and Bournemouth fans coming in. Ted, will there be divisions next year with the 4 teams in the West? Yeah, today, Tony Petiti, can't remember the publisher of the article, but I did see an article. Friend of the show, Craig Flughart, college football speaker around the corner, had a video of it on his channel if you want to check that out for more info. He's the realignment guy. He's the realignment czar. Talking about, Petiti said no divisions. So they're going to say 18 teams, like I said before, that they are going to try to remain in that Flex Protect Plus model. Like Iowa, right, had 3 protected opponents. Penn State had none, that kind of a deal where you're playing 3 teams every 2 years and then you alternate kind of things from there. But divisions are a thing in the past, no matter how many more teams get added. I know people have talked about, let's get to 24 teams so we can have 4 divisions and 4 pods. I still don't think that's going to happen. I don't care if we get to 30. I don't care if we get to 40. You're going to take the top whatever teams. I think one thing we learned from the East-West split is that the Big Ten championship game is important, and you want to have the very best teams. You want to have Michigan versus Penn State. You might want to have an Ohio State versus Michigan rematch as well, and we know that having maybe a couple of teams, we know that those East teams, those 3 East teams right now are the best teams in the Big Ten right now, so having those and having that big-time matchup, maybe past years, we haven't had that. Okay, sometimes you might have the winner from the East as the number 1. And remember when Wisconsin made it a few years, they might have been like the number 4 team or the number 3 team kind of in the Big Ten that season. I think going away from divisions is the right decision to make the Big Ten championship game even that much bigger. And of course, if they stick with a 12-team playoff and they kind of stick with the format, they might go to 5+7 now with the Pac-12 going away. But I could see the Big Ten moving in a direction where that Big Ten championship game is huge, because if they were the winner of that game, would get a bye, right? And who knows? Maybe the loser has to go on the road in the first round of a 12-team playoff. Appreciate everybody for coming along for the ride here tonight. I said at the beginning of the show, no notes, no prep. It's been a busy week. Chat, take me home. Take me home, country roads in the chat here tonight. Take me where you want to go. All right, let's get into a few more comments before we do. Big props to Clay Carter, newest member of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. Very much appreciate that. Looks like, Clay, you are a Purdue fan, and I'm all about Purdue right now. I really like what's happening. Even though they lost their very first game, I think Purdue is they've got a lot. Their future is very bright. I really like what's happening at Purdue. Let's get a win this week for the Boilermakers. Let's get a win against Syracuse, and then is it after that week? That's that Friday night game against Wisconsin at night. Ross 8 Brigade. It's gonna be rocking. Let's see what happens. Tanner Mordecai and Hudson Card go back to back. So thanks, Clay Carter, for becoming a member of the channel of the Big Ten TED Champions Club. For those of you that are watching, hit the join button below to become a member. Sunshine Design. If I was in charge, no protected rivalries. Well, that's interesting. Everyone plays everyone every other year. The rivalries will be that much more exciting that season. Now, here's the deal. Can you imagine the uproar if we didn't play Ohio State, Michigan every year? Or if we took a year off of Ohio State and Michigan? There's many other rivalries. If the Gophers and Badgers didn't play for the Axe, there are some fan bases out there that might say, whoa, wait a minute. Wait a second. I love to beat these guys every year. Remember when Wisconsin won however many Axe trophies it was? They were looking forward to that every year where they could brag to their Minnesota coworkers at work and say, we did it again. Now, here's one thing that has been brought up in an 18-team format that would work, a 1-8-8 scheduling model. So what is a 1-8-8? One opponent. You play one common opponent every year. For Ohio State, you'd play Michigan every year. For Minnesota, you'd probably play Wisconsin every year. For Iowa, you'd play Nebraska. Northwestern, right? We're talking about Sunshine Design. Northwestern, you'd play Illinois for the hat. All these things. And then you play every other team in the Big Ten every other year. So you skip a year in between. So what would that mean? Iowa, Minnesota would not be yearly as well. That would be, so Iowa, Minnesota, right? The pig would be contested every other year. You would have, let's say, Paul Bunyan Trophy, Michigan State, every other year. The Cannon game, Illinois and Purdue, which is a very underrated rivalry in our league, every other year. You keep on going on and on and on. There is a handful of Big Ten rivalries. There's a handful of Big Ten trophy games that, to me, we got to play every year. Those three stick out in my head. What about Iowa, Wisconsin? Now, maybe it's not the Floyd Rosedale, right? The Heartland Trophy. It's still a trophy game. Iowa, Wisconsin. It would seem weird not to play Hawkeyes, Badgers in a given season, right? If I went in Wisconsin and Iowa, not matching up, seeing Wisconsin play UCLA but not Iowa, that seems weird to me. That seems weird. I don't think it's as simple as 1-8-8, set it and forget it, right? Like the old infomercials. I think there's some flexing going on. I think I think we're going to lean more towards the 1-8-8 than obviously 3-6-6 doesn't work out mathematically. But I think you're going to lean more into the 1-8-8, but I believe there's going to be teams that are going to have multiple protected rivalries. I would venture to say that the West Coast schools will have USC and UCLA will be protected. Oregon and Washington will be protected. I don't think you're going to protect Oregon, UCLA, Oregon, USC, Washington, USC. I don't think you're going to protect those. Yes, they've been playing for a long time, but I don't think any of them is a big-time rivalry, so to speak, as far as I know. If there's any West Coast fans here, they can kind of correct me on that. So you could see maybe a Iowa play 3 protected games, and now instead of playing every team in the Big Ten every other year, you might have to go to a third year for Iowa to play Oregon, or something like that. Something like that. Want to get to a few member comments here. Once again, another perk of membership is sometimes when you got comments here, those definitely do stand out to me. So I'm going to get to Greg. Greg, thank you for being a member of the channel. 10 conference games. Set it and forget it, right? What is it? Is that 377, right? Because you got 14 plus 317, and then, yeah, you take it. Yep, that'd be 18. A 377 with 10 league games fixes it. You know what else that helps a little bit? Maybe you can get the television networks to pay for one more conference game, right? Because I think the networks would love to see Oregon against Wisconsin rather than Oregon against Portland State. Man, poor Portland State. Giving up 81, poor Duck. Man, doing all those push-ups. Oof. 377 is beautiful. It works, right? You can do the flex protect, right? Where Iowa would still play Nebraska. They'd still play Wisconsin. They'd still play Minnesota. But Penn State you could kind of rotate through some of those rivals that are in the 3, right? So that's something that you could do as well. And you could kind of rotate teams that you're going to play in those 3, in the 3 of the 377. Do they want to extend to 10 conference games? The SEC is playing 8. And by the SEC playing 8, that gives them a better opportunity to get more teams in the playoff. We're at 9. Obviously, we're not going back. Will we go to 10? It works out, and I think eventually we're going to get to 10. When we expand to 20, maybe 22, 24, who knows, when we get 10 years down the road when the ACC eventually implodes, as it probably will, I believe that we're going to get to 10. We're going to get to 10 at some point. I just think it makes too much sense. It might happen in the next TV deal. Say, hey, TV partner, you're going to pay for 10 conference games now instead of 9. There's more of a value. So instead of playing Maryland plays Charlotte on NBC, Big Ten Saturday night this week, for example, instead of that, you'd see Maryland against Purdue or Maryland against Michigan State in that primetime slot. And I think that's maybe more what the networks, and we know that's what's driving everything right now as well. Blazed Bunny coming in. What a name. What a name. What a name. Gotta love it. Oregon and USC. Blaze Bunny, you a Colorado fan? Oregon and USC haven't played yearly since Utah and Colorado were at it. So, yeah, when Oregon and Washington, we know it's a rivalry. We know USC and UCLA is a rivalry, but those other ones on the West Coast, I'm sure they're fine. And I'm sure they want to play the rest of the Big Ten as well. I'm sure they want to play those other schools as well. Want to appreciate everybody for coming along for the ride tonight. It's been a busy week for me, but it is almost Friday. Okay, here's kind of what's coming up on the channel. For the Friday night, we got Illinois taking on Kansas, Illini, and Jayhawks. I will have a reaction of that game. Got a rare Friday night off, so I will have a reaction of Illinois at Kansas, and I'm looking forward to that, so stay tuned. Shortly after the game, I'll have that uploaded on the channel. And then here's, as of right now, my schedule can change, but as of right now, what I'm looking at is, what's the noon slot? Nebraska and Colorado. Definitely going to have a reaction to that no matter what way that one is going to go. Very excited to share my thoughts with you guys on that one. You look at that. You also got to take a look at the 2:30 slot. Who's playing in the 2:30 slot? Oh, Iowa State. You got the Hawkeyes and Cyclones, so I'll have a reaction video to that one as well. And then night we got Wisconsin and Washington State. Kind of keep an eye on, kind of pay attention to the Twitter as well. Sometimes I will have 2 games on at a time. Right, I got one on the big TV just in the old den this way, and then I have a laptop that I have a game on as well. So I'm watching 2 games at once in each time slot. So like the noon time slot, I'll probably have of course, Nebraska's Colorado is probably going to be on the big TV. And then Purdue and Virginia Tech will probably be on my laptop. I'll be kind of watching that game. I'd be very surprised to see you guys in the comments kind of say, what games are you watching in each time slot? Which games are you kind of most looking forward to? Then you get to the 3:30, the mid-afternoon. I'll probably put Iowa and Iowa State on the big TV. That's another Fox game. So I can just leave Fox on the big TV from the noon to the 3 o'clock slot. Okay, so you got those two games back to back. Oh, what's kind of the alternate in that game? You got Richmond, Michigan State on BTN, UNLV at Michigan, UTEP Northwestern. Probably UNLV at Michigan. I didn't see Michigan last week, so it'll probably be UNLV in Michigan. I will have on the laptop. What's that on? That's on CBS. That's on CBS. I've got YouTube TV, so I'm all set there. In the primetime slot, I'll have Wisconsin at Washington State on the big TV. That'll kind of be my main viewing. Then I'll probably put Charlotte and Maryland. You got Eastern Michigan and Minnesota there as well. You got Temple and Rutgers. And with YouTube TV, I got DVR, so I always go back and watch these games as well. So that's kind of my viewing schedule, but very curious to see what you guys have an eye on this weekend as well. Let's get to some more comments here. Jared Jones chiming up here. Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota. These are protected rivals. Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. All those on the top line, got to play them every year. Illinois, Northwestern, yep. Indiana, Purdue, yep. Maryland, Rutgers, sure. Penn State, Michigan State, they're not too big of rivals, right? Penn State, that's their whole deal. We're unrivaled. So there's that. And then you look at those secondary rivalries. Michigan, Michigan State. I feel like you got to play that every year. Feel like you got to play Illinois, Purdue every year. You got to play Iowa, Wisconsin. I know Iowa's got a lot of rivals. What does that say about Iowa? Maybe a lot of people don't like Iowa. Maybe that's what it says. I don't know. Let's get into some more comments. David Green Shield chiming in here tonight has Wisconsin. Had the Badgers leveled up their pass game. They did not set a high bar. All right, when I answer this question, you got to understand where the bar was in Graham Mertz. Florida can tell you all about that. The bar was not very high. Okay, and the bar has not been very high for Wisconsin as a whole. So I think the bar has been raised, but Tanner needs to protect the ball. I'm going to say that until I'm blue in the face. Just like this shirt. This shirt's going to come up to my face, and that's what they're going to look the same, right? When I'm done a couple of weeks in here, right? I'm going to keep on saying it, but this passing game and this offense, I don't think it's going to achieve the level that it sets out to achieve if Tanner keeps on turning the football over. I know it's one game, and I'm not going to overreact. And if he plays well against a good Washington State defense, then I'll say, yep, it looks like Wisconsin is well on their way. Balanced offense, great. But it looks like they've got better talent on the perimeter, no question about it. You're not really creating any controversy saying that this might be the best Wisconsin receiving core that they've had maybe ever, right? They've got a lot of talent out there on the perimeter. Have they leveled up their passing game? It appears to be so, but I want to wait and see them have some really good performances, have Tanner Mordecai take care of the football before I really say, yes, this passing game is a big-time weapon as much as the run game is at Wisconsin. As well. Our guy Sunshine Design, he's going to be tuning into Illinois. Illinois, Kansas may have to find a new team to follow this year. Sunshine Design, if you don't know, resident Northwestern fan here on the channel. Of course, Illinois on a Friday night, traveling to Lawrence, Kansas to take on the Jayhawks. Our guy Mike coming in. Love me some Mike. Go Big Red. I think a lot of people, I won't ask people to cheer for the fan base they don't want to cheer for. But I believe a lot of us in Big Ten country, I said this at the top of the show, I kind of ranted at the top of the show about Colorado and just the hype and after one game. But I think a lot of us that are Big Ten fans are also Nebraska fans this week. I'm going to say it. Go Big Red, baby. Go Big Red. Let's be physical. Let's show Colorado and the country how we play football here in the Big Ten as well. Now, David kind of coming in with any faith. I do have faith. Look, Tanner Mordecai made some good throws. He made good throws in the game against Buffalo. Okay, once Wisconsin got to the second half, this offense started to click a little bit more. Is this I call it Sparty syndrome, right? Michigan State started off very slow against Michigan State, and then they really turned it on late. Did they have that Sparty syndrome, and then they worked it all out? They were able to make some adjustments in the locker room at halftime, and then things worked out. They got more confidence and everything kind of later in that football game. Is that kind of where we were with Wisconsin? Okay, do they have it all figured out? We're going to find out. No question. Against Washington State. Against Washington State. Greg says he thinks they'll work it out. Also, he's got some optimism as well. Black Cat coming in here tonight. Thoughts on clock changes. It takes possessions away. Like I was watching Rutgers and Northwestern got what? Did they get one possession maybe in the first half? Or the first quarter, not the first half. That'd be crazy. In the first quarter, I think it was. So Chip Kelly said in his halftime interview, hope you're selling a lot of commercials. That's the thing. If you're an up-tempo offense, you can understand why a guy like Chip Kelly isn't happy about it. And you play a physical football team that plays clock, that's in your favor now. That's in your favor to be a team that controls the clock, runs the football, time of possession, that whole thing, and you take possessions away from a team that's up-tempo and thrives on multiple and just gobs of possessions during a football game. All right, let's see what else we got comments-wise tonight. Wisconsin is in primetime, 6:30 p.m. Central, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Would that be 4:30 p.m. local time over in Pullman, Washington? I believe so. That's in primetime on ABC. So for those of you that have charter, you might need to find a different way. Well, it's on ABC, so you got the antenna. You can still watch it over the air as well over there. All right, let's get to some more comments over here. David chiming in as well. How does this Penn State team compare to the 16 and 17 teams? Those McSorley and Barkley teams were very, very, one more time, very good. Yeah, they're good. They're great. We still got, it's one game. Okay, how many times am I going to say that? I'm a broken record. We got to find out. Drew Aller was, I think, week one, you could put him definitely in the top 3 in terms of Big Ten quarterbacks. I thought he probably had the best game of a Big Ten quarterback and looked as impressive as anybody in terms of being a Big Ten quarterback. If he's at that level, I think he can be more talented than Trace McSorley. I think he's can definitely be more talented than Sean Clifford. But if he's more talented than Trace McSorley, look out. Because you got a run game that is as good as it gets in college football. You've got a pass game that's really good. We know Keandre Lambert-Smith, can stretch it over the top. Penn State, man, they are right there. They are a team with Michigan, with Ohio State. I would say I don't usually put out power rankings right now, but I'd probably put Michigan and Penn State as a tie for 1A and 1B. Right now is the best 2 teams in the conference. Penn State's defense is nasty. They've got the top corners in the league. They've got great linebackers. They've got some of the best rush defensive ends with Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac. They've got a really good offensive line. Like, how much more do you want me to say? I'm losing my breath here. They are really, really good. Really, really good. No question about that. I get Tanner plays Guitar Hero. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Which team do you root for? I get this question a lot, maybe more than any other question, and I will say this. I grew up in the state of Wisconsin. My earliest sports memories are Ron Dane winning a Heisman, the NCAA rushing record, a couple of consecutive Rose Bowls. I love Wisconsin. I've been to Madison for many game days. An interesting fact about me is my parents have been selling fresh produce on Saturdays at the Madison Farmers Market for over 30 years. So I'm a Madison guy. I'm a Wisconsin guy through and through. So if I had to pick one team, I'm a Wisconsin fan. But I'll say this, I get excited about Purdue versus Michigan State as I do Wisconsin versus Minnesota. I've always been a Big Ten fan at heart. I've always loved the makeup, especially when I grew up when it was the Big 11, the makeup of the league, the Midwestern, the rugged blue-collar physicality of our conference. I love watching physical football. High-scoring offense is great as well, but there's nothing better than running the football, play action, hit the ball to the tight ends, that kind of thing. I've always been a Big Ten fan at heart. I've always been a broad college football fan, and I think this goes for a lot of sports as well. I'm a lot more neutral, but I will gravitate towards the Wisconsin teams. Living in Minnesota now, I'll kind of gravitate to some of those teams as well. I will not become a Vikings fan. I cannot venture away from my Packer fanhood. I will say that in terms of Minnesota. I could care less about the Timberwolves and the Twins here in Minnesota as well. So, and obviously the Bucks have a much better NBA team over there. So when it comes to college football, it's probably Wisconsin. I've got a lot of great memories of Wisconsin football growing up. So it's probably the Wisconsin Badgers. So appreciate the question. But that's kind of where I sit in terms of that. I want to see Wisconsin do well this season for obvious reasons. All right, let's get to some more comments. David, still optimistic about the quarterback offensive line at Wisconsin. Has to get better. Really wanted to see this week against a decent team. So there's that. Let's see what else we got going on here. Rooting for Notre Dame against Ohio State. I'm trying to look. What is that, an Iowa logo in your avatar there? Come on. We got to root Big Ten here. We got to root Big Ten on this channel, especially in a non-conference game, especially in a non-league game. So appreciate that. All right, let's go. Badger and Bournemouth fan. Love the Big Ten, but don't really like the direction. Yeah, I think I remember a comment that you put on a video, B&B, before that. It's changing. It's changing. I think the Big Ten with these West Coast teams, teams inside the conference on the field are going to have to adapt. They're not going to have to change. This is not a Scott Frost situation, right, with Nebraska. But I think when you have these teams that are more wide open and recruit a lot more skill players, but these teams out west, I think, are going to have to get more physical. They're going to have to get better on defense. I've said this many times. Teams got to meet in the middle. Got to meet in the middle. I think for this to happen, we'll see. We'll see. I think in hindsight, at the time, Rutgers and Maryland made sense for what the move was. Getting cable boxes, getting a lot more viewers with the alumni bases out in those markets. Now that cable and all that isn't as big of a deal anymore, it's more about brands now. Maybe Rutgers and Maryland. Would they do it again? I'm not so sure. Okay, but Rutgers and Maryland are Big Ten members right now. And then we just got to accept that. I know some people are still, we're 10 years? We're 10 years into this thing. They're Big Ten members. I think they're full share. I think they just became full share members as well here in this new TV deal. David chiming in. Still optimistic about the Buckeyes quarterback situation. It's the offensive line talent that concerns me, and that is a concern because, they, especially on the exterior of their offensive line at the tackles, they've lost some pieces. We're not really going to find out what's going on with Ohio State, I think, until they play Notre Dame. It's kind of like Michigan. We're not going to find out really where this team sits until they get into a conference game a little bit. We're not going to find out against Michigan until like the middle of October, right? If you take a look at Michigan's schedule, and I'll quickly pull it up here to the side here on my computer, but if I pull up their schedule here for 2023, we know the first three games, East Carolina, they won. UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers. Then they play Nebraska on the road on September 30th. It's a better opponent. It's still not an outstanding opponent. Then they go on a road to Minnesota on October 7th, Indiana on October 14th, Michigan State. We'll see where MSU is at that point. Purdue. I said this before in my prediction show. There's a possibility Michigan might not play a ranked team until Veterans Day, November 11th, when they go to Happy Valley to play Penn State. Because let me recite some of these teams off again. Rutgers, probably not going to be ranked. Nebraska, at that time, probably not going to be ranked. Minnesota, I mean, they could beat Minnesota, could beat North Carolina. They could be their only law. They could be undefeated. Could they be undefeated? Yeah, I think Minnesota could maybe be undefeated going into that game. There's a possibility that they could be ranked. Indiana's not going to be ranked. Michigan State, we'll see. I mean, I don't think they're going to beat Washington. Maybe they have one loss at that point, and maybe they give them the benefit of the doubt. Who knows? That's tough. I don't know. I don't think Michigan State is going to be ranked. A lot of things got to go right because Michigan State has to play Maryland early in the season. Let's kind of look at their schedule. They got to play Washington. This is before the Michigan game. Well, these are Washington, Maryland, both at home. They got to go to Kinnick, and they play at Rutgers. I see at least 2 losses in there for Sparty, so I don't think Michigan State is going to be ranked as well, even though I think they're a better team this year than they were last year. And Purdue, I think Purdue could go to a bowl game this year, but I don't think they're going to be ranked. I think the only potential for Michigan to play a ranked team before Penn State is when they travel to Minnesota on October 7th. And Minnesota's got to beat North Carolina, I think, in order for that to happen. Could you see a 1-loss Minnesota team be ranked? Right? You play Eastern Michigan, Northwestern, Louisiana, with not really a marquee victory on the schedule for the Gophers. I just don't see it. I think they got to go on the road and they got to beat North Carolina in order to get that respect from the AP. And we all know the issues that happen with the Associated Press poll. So that being said, we know Michigan's schedule, right? Michigan and Georgia did not have great schedule kind of coming in. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe a team can surprise them and give them a challenge. I think Michigan State on the road could be a challenge. Nebraska and Minnesota in back-to-back weeks on the road. We'll see about that. They weren't overly impressive against East Carolina in week number 1, but we'll see if they continue to get better as we go along. Comment from member Jared Jones. He loves the new Big Ten. I'm glad we got more than 2 schools on the West Coast. I'm glad we kind of got a West Coast wing a little bit. Oregon and Washington, I think, are going to provide even more competition. So here's the thing about the new Big Ten that we all got to accept. What's the barometer for success? Now those West Division teams, you can't measure and say, yep, we've won a West Division title, and this year, 2 years later, we won it again. How are you going to measure success? Is it records, bowl games? You got to find a new way because it's going to be that much more difficult to get to a Big Ten championship game. I think 2024, what a year that is going to be. College football as we know it, I think is coming to an end here in 2023. We start a new era in 2024, and I think there's going to be more changes before that. Not necessarily conference realignment, but there's going to be more changes. Can we not with the NCAA? Can we just leave them over here and go over here? Right? Can we just have I don't know. Can we just figure something out where this pointless organization that is the NCAA ceases to exist because they are losing power and influence as we can continue to go along here. LFG in the house with number 20 tonight. Appreciate you coming aboard here tonight. David thinking the team up north, a.k.a. Michigan, has a 2-game season, which would be Penn State and Ohio State. And those are 2 of the last 3 games of the season. They got to avoid getting too high on themselves because there's games in there where they could get stripped. Watch out for Michigan State. We know there's heat. We know there's smoke behind the rivalry, especially after what happened after the game last season. I think there's going to be a lot of smoke behind that Michigan State rivalry, and I think Michigan State is going to be a better team, even though, boy, Keon Coleman, what he was doing at Florida State. Baby, come back. You can blame it all on me is the song they're singing in East Lansing, Michigan. Boy, if Keon Coleman was on Michigan State this year and Peyton Thorne was on this team, I think they'd be a pretty good football team. But they're not. You gotta play in reality. Jared is crazy excited to get the new 24 Big Ten schedule. I'm very curious to see with Tony Petitti and everybody when this is all going to happen. Are they going to let football season just kind of come and go and then do it? Or what exactly is the focus? I would imagine I think it'd be a little bit weird to me to drop the schedule maybe in the middle of the year. But we'll see. I don't think there's a rush as long as I'm sure behind the scenes, right? They're figuring everything out. But yeah, it's just the announcement I think would be a little weird, especially in the middle of the season to have that announcement. It could happen. But I'd rather see it after the season, maybe sometime. You got to have it sometime in February. We got to start planning for these things. Who are we going to play? How many home games? And when are we going to play them? That kind of thing. We got to know. We got to know that. So hopefully we find that out as things go along. Here's Badger and Bournemouth fan. I can't wait until the first Oregon USC, and I sense some sarcasm here considering what he said before. Oregon USC Big Ten championship game in Los Angeles, right? I think they're going to rotate it. I know there's been rumors about Las Vegas, LA, Minneapolis, Indianapolis, the new Chicago stadium. I think we're going to rotate, or the networks are going to rotate for the championship game. I think we're going to rotate sites as well in this championship game. So, yeah, I could very well see that continuing to happen as well. But, yeah, an Oregon US, imagine in 2024, let's say it's in Los Angeles. Let's say this scenario comes true that B&B is talking about. Boy, the traditional Big Ten in year number 1, and you get Oregon USC in Los Angeles. We got to get one traditional Big Ten team in there. You got to get a Penn State. You got to get an Ohio, even though Penn State's not they joined in the 90s. But you get the idea. Ohio State, Michigan. Got to get some like Eastern, Midwestern team in there, right? At least one in year number 1 to have the Ducks and the Trojans take over. Oof. What would that say? What would that say about the conference? I don't know. That's a whole different can of worms that we got to talk about as well. Appreciate everybody for coming along for the ride tonight here on Big Ten Ted. All right, Lewis Papp joining here, and I'm going to explain a little bit. He's a member. If you want to be a member of the channel, hit the join button below. If it's not on their phone, go to my main channel page and hit join there. The more members that end up joining, the more custom logos and custom emojis that I can have. So by default, you start with 4. And I put the 4 logos that fit best with me. And those were just the first 4 logos that I were able to throw in there. No matter which 4 I threw in there, some member was not going to be happy. But the more members I'm able to get, there's certain tiers, you're able to put more logos and emojis into there. So the more members I get, I can throw in a Michigan logo. I can throw in a Michigan State logo. I can kind of throw in some of those other logos as well. All right, let's kind of come in here. Jared Jones, Michigan State had to be sick watching Coleman just go off in that Florida State game. This is not surprising, right? You're playing with a better quarterback and Jordan Travis out there and just a better team in Florida State. Keon Coleman could win the Biletnikoff Award. He could be the best receiver in the game, especially when you consider what happened in week number 1 and how Florida State's offense appears to be. And then you factor in Ohio State maybe not throwing it around as much. Maybe Marvin Harrison Jr. not maybe going to put up the numbers that he has in the past. I think that definitely helps things out in terms of Keon Coleman going forward, maybe being named the best receiver in all of college football. Let's take a look at some more comments as well. LFG chiming in. He likes Michigan State's quarterback, not a fan of their OC and Mel Tucker's run-first style. I believe that even though our guy LFG might not be a fan of it, I saw some good things from Nathan Carter in that Central Michigan game that I think that they can really use and really go off of. I don't think Noah Kim, and we haven't seen Caden Hauser yet either, but I don't think Noah Kim is a guy, and I don't think they have the talent on the perimeter. I think they got okay talent on the perimeter, but I don't think they have great talent out there, right? No Jaden Reed, no Keon Coleman, right? Those two guys were on the team last season, and now Jaden Reed is in Green Bay with the Packers. Of course, we just talked about Keon Coleman. I think they need to run the football to be successful. This is a Big Ten methodical approach. You need to run the ball and play good defense, I think, for Sparty to have really good success. I just don't see it any other way. I find it difficult to see them throwing the ball a ton, to make explosive plays like they maybe did a couple of years back. I just have a tough time. I just have a tough time thinking about it. It's just not going to happen. Let me just put it that way. Let me just put it straight. It's just not going to happen. Appreciate everybody for coming along for the ride tonight. Man, I appreciate all the support. The channel has done very well so far in the season, and I knew our numbers and everything was going to go up once football season began. But I'm very thankful for everybody that tunes into the previews and the reactions. Just like Detroit, I think it's Detroit they sing about, but just like this city was built on rock and roll, this channel was built on previews and reactions. Right? That's what this channel really started with, and that's how it kind of gained the following that it did. Right? And it's kind of a funny story how the reaction videos started is I had some family that was going on a camping trip, and I'm kind of watching football at home, and I'm like, I remember when Penn State played Wisconsin to open up the season on that Saturday. If you remember that a couple of years ago, and I'm like, halfway through the game, I'm like, you know what? I should just, on my channel, upload my thoughts right after the game is over. Right after the game is over. And that video did well, and then the next video did well, and then all of a sudden now we're doing other things, and it continues, and previews and reactions have been. That is the core of the channel. Of course, we've added live streams, we've added other videos and other topics, especially during the off season. But during the season, going to see a lot of previews, going to see a lot of reactions. That is the bulk of what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot of football talk, of course, during this season as well. Big shout out to our guy Mike for the $10 super chat. Great way to support the channel as well, super chat. So big thanks to Mike for that as well. Appreciate that. Mike's a big supporter. Really appreciate Mike. He's a Nebraska fan. And Mike, I am cheering for the Big Red this weekend to shut up Deion Sanders, to shut up Colorado, to shut up the national media. What are they going to say? What are they going to say now if Nebraska plays a tough, physical game, they run the football, and they do great against Colorado, and they beat them, say, 24-20? I hope Nebraska then said, well, Nebraska beat a great team. You know that's not what is going to happen. You know that's not what they're going to say. I'm curious to see what they will say if Nebraska finds a way to win. There's not a lot of games that I try to look at things fairly objectively and all that, but this is one where I am going to be on the edge of my seat. I'm going to get out. I do have a Nebraska t-shirt in my closet. I'm going to be wearing that t-shirt. And go Big Red. Just do it. Get it done. Run the ball. Run the ball, please. Oh, man. Just run the ball. Mike, I'll help you out here with the membership. If you're watching it on a phone, you have to go to the channel page. So if you see the little Big Ten Ted logo, you click on my name to go to my main channel page. There should be a join button there. If you're still having issues, you can send me an email. That's big10ted@gmail.com, and I can help you out here, whether it's tonight or tomorrow or whenever. I can kind of help you out with that as well to make sure you get that in. Big thanks to our guy, Badger and Bournemouth fan, for the $5 super chat. Right? We've got some. I'm a Badger fan at heart. Of course, to talk about Big Ten, I don't really talk about my fanhood in terms of teams a lot. Wisconsin, it started with. Nebraska. I've been a fan of Nebraska at certain points, especially kind of earlier on in my college football viewing days, and I want to see Nebraska be good. I love what PJ Fleck is doing at Minnesota. It's hard for the Wisconsinite in me to cheer for the Gophers. That's hard for me, but I respect Minnesota. I love what they're doing. I think PJ gets the most out of his players, maybe more than a lot of coaches around the Big Ten and around college football. I really hope PJ stays in Minnesota. If he continues to get 8-win seasons, 9-win seasons, does he reach his ceiling? And then does he maybe explore other opportunities as well? Like I could see a guy like Mike Elko at Duke. He got a big win. He could rattle off 8 or 9 win seasons, but you can see that maybe in the future at Duke, you could see he's really being pigeonholed a little bit. You're kind of bringing it in a little bit. You need to go to a bigger program with more resources. I don't know what's going to happen with PJ. He seems to be built for a Midwestern team. So another Big Ten team, who would that be? Who would that be? If Kirk, can you imagine if Kirk retired and they hired PJ Fleck at Iowa? Hawkeye fans, I'd feel for you that way on that one as well. So thanks for the super chat there. I do support the Big Ten. I love, man, I can tell you all sorts of great Big Ten memories from my child, even though this one does involve Wisconsin. I remember a Badger and Bournemouth fan. He might love this. I remember when I can remember the certain where I was. I won't bore you with the story, but I was listening to Matt LePay's radio call, Wisconsin. It was 2004. They were playing at Purdue. If you guys remember, Purdue was a really good team. Kyle Orton was the quarterback, and the college game day was at Purdue that week, and I want to say they were close to being a top 10 team, Purdue was, and Purdue had the lead, and Kyle Orton gets the ball, and there's a couple of minutes to go. He rolls out, and he gets helicoptered. Nice sound effects. He gets helicoptered. Ball comes out. Scott Stark scoops up the football and takes it to the house. Wisconsin and Purdue went in opposite directions after that. Purdue kind of went on a downturn. Wisconsin, right, that was kind of the end of the Barry Alvarez era, right? I think he retired maybe the next year. And then Brett Bielema kind of came in, and Purdue's really had a hard time getting back to that level ever since then. Oh, my gosh. Badger and Bournemouth fan was there. You were at that game. That's crazy. That was at Purdue. That was in West Lafayette. Yeah, it's just, I love the history of that one. I think Purdue kind of came back and had a decent years, maybe the next couple, but they just weren't the same. They never got back to that level after that game. That year, they really took a dive. That season, Wisconsin continued to be Wisconsin. They continued to be successful. But that's a Big Ten memory that really sticks out in my head. I love talking about that Big Ten memory. That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. That's one that sticks out in my head. I'd have to really think and really sit down and think of some other great historical memories that stand out. Maybe I'll get to some a little bit later if I can't think of any other ones as well. Badger Bournemouth fan, heard Boiler up a million times before and exactly zero after. Yeah, that'll tend to happen. That's what we love about college football. We love the passionate fan bases of each and every single one of these teams. As well, so yeah, it's fun, but that's just one of those games that really stick out. And who knows, maybe this weekend we're gonna get one of those games. I just want to quickly wrap up before I end the show here tonight. I want to thank everybody who's joined as a member. We've had a couple tonight. I want to thank everybody who's super chatted. Your support of the channel helps me invest more into this because then I don't have to work other freelance gigs to get a new driveway or get a new car or other things like that. I don't have to do that. I can use this channel to try to do that, and you guys have done great, supported, watched the videos as well. It's been a really good start to the season on the channel. I can't wait to see what happens when we really dive into the meat of things, when we really get into conference play, and we really start to break these things down a little bit more. I'm really excited about what's to come on this channel. But Illinois, Kansas, we're gonna find out a lot about Illinois this week. What about Iowa, Iowa State? What about Nebraska, Colorado? Now we're starting to get into some of these games where, okay, we saw what happened in week one. Okay, it's week one. Let's not overreact. Now we go to week two. Now we got 120 minutes of game tape. Now we're starting to see some trends. Now we're starting to see things happen in back-to-back weeks. All right? I can't wait to see. Is Nebraska, can they run the ball down Colorado's throat? Is that going to work? Can Illinois get a better pass rush this week against Kansas? Wisconsin and Washington State. This is a week where we're really going to learn. This is going to be an educational weekend for everybody, for a lot of fan bases in Big Ten country. I want to get to a few more comments here before we wrap things up tonight. LFG was at 1971. Ohio State at Michigan. That is Big Ten. That was the original 10, right? Of course, we had the original 10. When did Michigan State join? I want to say 40s or 50s. That sticks out in my head for some reason. I think we were at 9, and then Michigan State joined, I think it was. And then we were at 10 for the longest time. Give me the original 10, baby. the OG. Give me the OG Big Ten as the best version of our league. I know the Big 11 with Penn State and then when Nebraska. I know those were good ads, and I appreciate and I like those ads. But there's nothing like big original Midwestern blue collar Big Ten football. There's nothing like it. That's what I like. That's what I enjoy. Other people might like to sling the ball around and score 100 points. That's what other people like. And I can get with that sort of football, but there's something to be said about physicality. There's something to be said about defense that really makes that at least I really like watching. Don Turner chiming in here later in the show. Illinois needs a couple of 3-and-outs, and they need them right away. That's the thing. They need them early against Kansas. You allow Kansas to score on their first 3 drives. I said the thing in my same preview about Nebraska when they face Colorado. You need to slow them down. Sometimes the best defense to an up-tempo offense can be your methodical offense, if that makes sense. It's kind of a lot of offense and defense in that phrase, but you kind of get what, especially with the new clock rules. Slow them down. Get them on the sidelines for 10 minutes. Get them on the sidelines for 15 minutes in real time. Of course, different in clock time as well, but get them. You punt. Simple things in an up-tempo offense. I said this in my preview of Nebraska and Colorado as well. Simple things like incomplete passes, right? It may seem simple, but getting them out of their rhythm, an up-tempo offense like a Kansas or a Colorado, they thrive when they're able to put multiple consecutive plays together and continuing moving the football down the field because they continue to go up tempo and they get the defense reeling and they keep on going down the field. Incomplete passes as well. I remember I played a lot of NCAA football on the Xbox growing up, and the last edition they made, 14, was probably the best edition in terms of running an up-tempo offense. And I remember it's like, man, when you put a couple of plays together, I know it's a video game, but it's somewhat comparable. But you put a couple of plays together, man, you're humming, you're gaining momentum down the field. But as simple as an incomplete pass, oh crap, now we got to huddle up a little bit. We got to get out of our rhythm a little bit. It's as simple as that for a Nebraska defense, for an Illinois defense this week. You got to get them out of your rhythm. It's a rhythm and timing-based offense that schools like Kansas and Colorado have this weekend. Badger and Bournemouth fan, he likes the West, just wish it would stay out of the West. He missed the Pac and the Rose Bowl. This last year, I'm not going to lie, after that Penn State-Utah game, and I know Utah's not a traditional Pac team, but I'll admit I got a little bit emotional thinking this is the very last traditional Rose Bowl. I grew up, Big Ten, Pac-10. You wake up, Rose Parade, and maybe you watch the Cotton Bowl in the noon slot or whatever it was, and then you watch Big Ten, Pac-10 in the 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or at least that was Central Eastern kind of time, at least in our area where I was living. You watch that game in the Rose Bowl, and then you had something like the Sugar Bowl or the Orange Bowl at night with some of those Southern conferences. It's different. I understand there's some feelings that kind of go along with that. If you're a college football fan I'm a fairly young guy. Right? I'm not, like LFG, I wasn't attending football games in 1971. I was exactly negative 20 years old in 1971. So it's not like I'm a, very traditional college football fan. I kind of grew up, when the Big Ten had 11 teams and, there was more expansion. I kind of grew up in the TV area when that was really starting to heat up and kind of steer the direction of college football. But still, you can't beat Big Ten. You can't beat Pac-10 in that Rose Bowl game. I wish, we would maybe invest more in non-conference games, but here we are. So we just I understand how people might feel, but in all reality, this is the reality that we're gonna have a West Coast presence, and we got to put it into our advantage. LA is a great recruiting market. Oregon's a big national brand. Play off of it a little bit to maybe have an uptick in recruiting in some of these other teams as well. LFG talking my language a little bit. He loves the Big Sky, the Mountain West. Boy, I tell you what. Montana State, the brawl of the wild out there. That's as good as it gets out there. Last summer went up to Glacier National Park in Montana. Montana is as beautiful as a state as you'll ever drive through. I've driven through it twice. and it is a fantastic state to drive through. There's a lot from the would that be the North Dakota border? Yeah, the North Dakota-Montana border. And you kind of, before you get to Billings, and it depends what way you drive up through Montana, there's sometimes there's not a lot. Sometimes there's not a lot, I'll tell you, but Montana's great. But when you talk about the Big Sky, when I worked in Fargo, I covered University of North Dakota football when they were still in the Big Sky, before they moved back to their more regional conference, playing teams like South Dakota State, teams like that. But the Big Sky, I love that. I love that mountain of the Big Sky now. It's a really good FCS conference, right? Montana State are really good programs. They've always been really good programs. And boy, I love that College Game Day as much as I'll put College Game Day kind of over here to the side when I talk about pregame shows. But man, when they went to Montana State, and you had folks on horseback kind of leading the bus into town, it was so cool. It was so cool for someone that's been there a couple of times. And as a fan of the show Yellowstone, I loved when College Game Day kind of steering. Remember, Kirk Herbstreit was wearing the cowboy hat and everything. I think the only missed opportunity was having Kevin Costner as the guest picker. That's the only missed opportunity I think that they had at that over there. LFG, he's in the same boat. He's in the same boat as me as well. Want to appreciate everybody for coming along for the ride tonight. I'll admit it was a challenge to get this show in tonight. There's been a lot going on. There's been a lot of moving pieces here this week. So I appreciate everybody for coming along tonight. I appreciate everybody for watching the videos and everything. It's gonna be a really big week of Big Ten football. I'm excited for this week. I'm appreciative of the support that you guys have shown. Especially I can't believe I got 4 previews, all my pick'ems, and a live show in this week. That is what's between minor and major. Whatever that is, it's that type of miracle this week, because it's been insanely busy over here this week. So I want to appreciate everybody for joining me here tonight on Big Ten Ted Live. I think we're going to wrap things up here tonight. So quickly, before we go here tonight, here's what's coming up. I'm going to be having my reaction video to Illinois-Kansas tomorrow night. Okay, Illinois-Kansas. We've got in the Nebraska-Colorado. I'll have a reaction to that. Iowa State, Wisconsin-Washington State. It is going to be a great weekend of Big Ten football. If you haven't, we got a Discord as well. So if you want to join the Big Ten Ted Discord, that link is at the top of the chat as well. If you want to talk Big Ten football, whenever you want, with any fans that you want. So the chat is at the top. If you lost it, contact me on Twitter or wherever. I'll try to maybe drop it in the comments after the show is done as well. So appreciate everybody for coming by here tonight. Have a great Saturday. It's going to be a good one. And until then, I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you